Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nate with The King of Random, and today we're going to be showing you how to make your very own replica from a video game. In a recent video, I got to show you something fun I built for Devon Supertramp, some giant Mario Kart shells that I drove around on remote control cars. Like I said I would, I'm now going to show you how I did it so you can make your own. No interest in Mario Kart? That's alright, you can use the same methods I'm going to show you to make whatever kinds of props you want. In the video where I showed these shells off, I had these giant 2-foot fiberglass shells. We're going to be scaling those shells down so it's a little bit more manageable, but the same principles can be used for smaller or much larger projects. The purpose of today's video is to learn how to sculpt and prep 1-foot Mario Kart shells out of foam. The materials for this are pretty basic. This is called rigid insulation foam. It comes in sheets that are about 1 or 2 inches thick, and you can usually get it in pink or blue at hardware stores. The full-size sheets are usually 4 feet wide and 8 feet long. To make it so I could fit the pieces into my car, this one is cut down to 1/4 of that size, so it's 4 feet long and 2 feet wide. This is the 2-inch foam, and it's what we're going to be using today. These shells are tall and almost spherical in shape, so we're going to cut out 6 of the squares from the foam, glue them all together, and that'll give us a 1-foot cube. We have our marks measured out, and now we're going to use this handheld miter saw to cut out the individual squares. We have our 6 squares cut out and we're ready to glue them together, but this foam is made from polystyrene, which can be dissolved by the solvents in a lot of types of glue. So what we're going to use is this expanding foam in a can. It glues the foam together really well and it doesn't dissolve it. Shake your can of expanding foam well. Apply a thin layer of the foam and press your next piece down onto it. I like to use bamboo skewers stuck in through the sides to keep it from sliding sideways while it dries. Glue all 6 pieces together using skewers on each layer and place a weight on top to help minimize the expansion of the foam. Always wear gloves when we're using this expanding foam because it's really sticky and very annoying to have on your skin. Also make sure you're wearing clothing that you're okay with getting dirty. Depending on the temperature and humidity, the foam will take an hour or 2 to dry completely. Once it has, it will be rigid and inflexible. Our expanding foam is dry, so let's pull out the bamboo skewers. Sometimes they're glued to the foam on the inside, so it's good to have a pair of pliers to help with grip. Oh. That one doesn't want to come out. We'll probably run into that skewer while we're trying to carve the foam. It'll be a little bit annoying, but we just cut it off as we get to it. Our foam is now ready to go, so let's start marking out the design. From the top down, these shells are fairly round, so I'm going to draw an ellipse on the top of the foam and then carve off all of the sides until we have a cylinder. I'm going to be using the same handheld miter saw that I used to divide the squares up. It's narrow and it's straight, and it does a really good job of cutting through the foam quickly. After the quick cut with the saw, some very rough sandpaper will help you take down the ridges left in the foam. Now we have our cylinder, let's start adding some basic details. These shells have a ridge around the middle with a little bit of a curve in it, so I'm going to draw that in. First, I'm just adding a mark where the front and the back are, so I know where the curve should begin and end. This line I'm going to draw that goes all the way around will be the highest point that I want the ridge. This second line will be the lowest point of the ridge. You can see that I've now drawn this band going all the way around. I'm now going to use a thin razor blade to cut about 1 inch in all the way around the band so that when I cut down from the top, the piece will break off. Here's the bamboo skewer that wouldn't come out of the foam. I just sliced right through it with the saw. Now we do the same thing on the other side. Sounds like bamboo. There it is. Okay guys, update. We can now start to see the very basic shape of the shell start to emerge, and it's time to take down the excess and give it that nice dome shape. You can use a saw for taking down the large pieces of it if you want, but one of my favorite tools for shaping this foam is some 36 grit sandpaper. It's very rough and takes down the edges quickly. Okay, we've got a dome for the top of the shell coming along quite nicely. Now let's move on to the bottom of the shell. On the bottom, these shells do have something of a neck at the front, which looks a little bit like a donut. So the first thing we're gonna do is carve out a place for that. First, we'll draw a line to keep it centered. Now let's take our razor blade and do the same thing we did with the ridge going all the way around. I'll cut around the neck and then saw down pieces of the foam to that point. Now that we've got the neck blocked in, let's go back to using the saw and the sandpaper to take off more foam and block in the bottom shape of the shell. We've got our basic shape carved in. Now let's open up the neck hole and sand down and refine all of our edges. To open up the neck hole, you could use sandpaper or razor blades if you're really patient, but I'm going to use a rotary tool to speed things up a bit. Yeah. Foam everywhere. It gets everywhere. Now that we've taken down the ridges, let's go over the whole shell with a high grit sanding sponge to smooth it all out. We've smoothed down the shell, and now the only thing left to do is put in the 4 indentations that are the turtle's leg holes. Our shell is carved and smoothed down. Now all that's left is to carve in the shell ridge pattern on the top and the belly lines on the bottom. After I draw in those lines, I'm going to carve them in using sandpaper wrapped around a pen. Now that we've added in our ridges, this shell is ready to prep for the mold. If you remember, I explained that there are a lot of chemicals that can melt the polystyrene that this foam is made from. So what we're going to do is cover the entire thing in a protective layer of latex house paint. That will form a barrier that will let us do minor repair work and apply mold rubber that won't stick too much to the foam. Since the color we're going to be using doesn't matter at all, you can usually go to a paint store and ask if they have any incorrect mixes. They'll often be sold at a steep discount. There you have it, the paint is dry, and the only thing left before our shell is ready to mold is to use a little bit of spackle to fill in any gaps or cracks or pieces that may have chipped off in the carving. Spreading this spackle a little bit to try and fill in some of the really rough texture. Now I've got lots of the gaps and cracks filled with this spackling. I like this kind because when it's wet, it's a very bright pink color, but as it dries, it starts turning white, so you know when it's ready to sand or paint. Here we go, the pink spackling has all turned white, which means it's ready to be sanded, and as soon as we've done that, the whole shell will be ready to be molded. I'm using 400 grit sandpaper just to smooth down spackle. There you have it, our turtle shell is now built, sculpted, fixed up, and prepped, and it's ready to be molded, which we're going to show you how to do in our next video. To recap our process, we took some 2-inch rigid insulation foam and cut out 6 squares 1 foot by 1 foot. Using expanding can foam, we glued those 6 pieces together into a 1-foot cube. We then carved it into the shape of our shell using a saw and some high grit sandpaper. Once we had the shape that we wanted carved out of it, we painted on a protective layer of latex house paint and then used spackling to fill in any gaps or cracks in the foam. And now it's ready to be molded. This is the exact same process that I used to make the Mario Kart shells for the Devon Supertramp video. Here's the foam shell from that build. As a reminder, you don't have to use these techniques to make shells. All sorts of shapes can be made. This is just one fun example. There you have it. Now you know a quick method of making custom designs of your favorite video and movie pieces. Thanks for joining us for this project today, and we look forward to teaching you how to mold and cast your creation in the next video. Talk to you then. There's so much static electricity on the foam that I try and brush it off, and then all of the foam just like comes flying back on. It's like a magic trick. Appearing foam dust. Ah, it's everywhere. Oh my gosh. That made it worse.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying these new videos with Nate as much as I am. He's got some phenomenal talent when it comes to building and crafting, and he really loves what he does. Give him some validation if you agree, and I'll see you in the next video.